people think that we were cracking up on purpose, and it was not what we wanted to do at all.
Carol Burnett is America's sweetheart, but don't let the ear tug fool you. For over 50 years, she's been the queen of comedy, but she also kept a secret list. Hollywood isn't all sunshine, and Carol met some truly horrible people. We're talking about the 5 absolute worst. These aren't just rude encounters, they're stories of shocking betrayal, public humiliation, and calculated cruelty. The names on this list will stun you, especially one comedy legend who tried to destroy her in front of her own crew. Get ready, because the truth behind the smile is finally coming out. The ultimate backstabber. When Carol Burnett married Joe Hamilton in 1963, it looked like the perfect Hollywood match. He was a producer and music director she'd met on The Gary Moore Show. He understood the business inside and out. So here's the deal. He became the producer of The Carol Burnett Show, and to the public, he was her biggest champion, the partner helping her build a comedy empire. And it was an empire. Her show ran for 11 incredible seasons and raked in a staggering 25 Emmy Awards. They were the ultimate television power couple, long before that term was even a thing. A former CBS executive who worked with them said, Joe had the technical production knowledge, Carol had the creative genius and star power. Together, they seemed unstoppable. For almost 20 years, their marriage looked like a rare Hollywood miracle. They weren't just partners at work, they were raising 3 daughters and building what seemed like a perfect family life. But here's the catch. What most people don't realize is that behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. The reality was far more disturbing than anyone could have guessed. A former business affairs officer from CBS, who saw the contracts, revealed the truth. While Joe was playing the part of the devoted husband, he was quietly making moves. He secretly formed Hamilton Productions. Why? To claim ownership of the spin-offs from Carol's show, including the hugely successful Mama's Family. Think about that. While presenting himself as her partner, he was setting up separate companies to control parts of her creative work. The full, ugly truth didn't come out until their divorce proceedings in 1984. Court documents showed that Hamilton had systematically set himself up to claim rights to the intellectual property developed on The Carol Burnett Show. This included characters created and portrayed by Burnett and her cast. The crazy part is the Mama's Family situation. An entertainment lawyer familiar with the case called it particularly shocking. The character of Mama, played by Vicki Lawrence, was born in the family sketches on The Carol Burnett Show. These were some of the most beloved parts of the program, created through Carol's work with her team. Yet Hamilton had structured the deal so that when Mama's Family became its own show, his company held major ownership and control. And get this, the professional betrayal was only half of it. The divorce also brought to light his personal betrayals. An accountant who worked with the couple recalled that Hamilton had hidden assets and been unfaithful. When Carol finally confronted him about using their marriage to gain control of her work, his response was beyond cold. He just said, "It's business, not emotion." Basically, the mask dropped. After 18 years, the loving husband was gone, replaced by a ruthless businessman who had been playing a role the entire time. Carol had to fight him in a long, painful legal battle. She wasn't just fighting for money, she was fighting to get back her own artistic legacy, the characters and ideas she had brought to life. A longtime friend who was with Carol during that awful time explained it. What truly devastated Carol wasn't the end of her marriage. It was the realization that someone she had trusted completely had been calculating how to profit from her talent the entire time. For Carol, who had a tough childhood marked by unreliable adults, this was a nightmare. Repeating trust once again was used as a weapon. A former cast member put it best. Joe wasn't just her husband, he was the person who was supposed to be protecting her. Finding out he had been quietly setting up mechanisms to control and profit from her work was like discovering your security guard had been moonlighting as a burglar. That's why he's number 1 on the list. This wasn't a simple breakup, it was a premeditated plot, a betrayal that cut deeper than anyone knew. But his wasn't the only betrayal from inside her own show. Ego strikes back. For a decade, Harvey Korman was Carol Burnett's right-hand man. He was a pillar of The Carol Burnett Show, His amazing timing, his hilarious characters, and of course his legendary inability to keep a straight face, especially with Tim Conway, created some of the most iconic moments in TV history. To millions of people, Carol and Harvey were the perfect team, and their chemistry looked like genuine, deep friendship. Behind the scenes, it was true. For a long time, their relationship was close and collaborative. A former director on the show said they were inseparable on screen and off. They hung out together, supported each other. Carol, in particular, was Harvey's biggest champion. Yeah, about that, a former writer for the show explained, she fought for his salary increases, gave him opportunities to direct, and made sure he received proper recognition. She treated her cast like family, and Harvey seemed like the brother she adored. This is what made his betrayal so shocking and so horrible. According to multiple production team members, things got weird in the show's later seasons. As Corman's fame grew, so did his ego. What used to be normal creative disagreements started to turn into something much darker. Then the day came, a stage manager who saw it all happen said he verbally blew up on set, publicly disrespected the team, and took a direct dig at Carol. And get this, it wasn't a private argument. He did it in front of the entire production staff and cast during a rehearsal. It was a calculated, deliberate humiliation. Witnesses say Corman started questioning Carol's creative decisions, dismissing her ideas. He even made comments suggesting the show was popular despite her leadership, not because of it. A camera operator on set that day called it what it was. He essentially tried to stage a coup. It felt like he'd been building resentment for years and finally decided to make a power play. But he made a huge mistake. He didn't realize how beloved Carol was by literally everyone else on that set. What made it a true betrayal was its public nature. He chose to embarrass her in front of everyone instead of talking to her privately. That choice showed his true colors. Carol's response was legendary. A production assistant who was there said she fired him on the spot despite their deep bond. But she didn't yell. She didn't make a scene. She just looked at him and said, "I think we're done here." Then, she calmly walked to her office and told her producer to handle Corman's exit. The public story was managed carefully, of course. It was an amicable parting. But everyone who was there that day never forgot the look on Carol's face. A guest star who was rehearsing said, "It was like watching someone get betrayed and realize who was holding the knife. Then this calm dignity as she made the decision to cut him loose." She knew that letting that behavior slide would poison everything. A longtime friend said that something changed in Carol after that. She didn't become bitter, but she became more careful. She started watching for the small signs of ego, the little warnings she had missed with Harvey. She cut him loose. But a co-star's ego is one thing. A movie god's is another. Zero accountability. Marlon Brando. The name itself is legendary. He changed acting forever in movies like A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather. By the 1970s, he was more than a star. He was a Hollywood myth with unmatched power. But what most people don't realize is that this power allegedly led to a truly disturbing interaction with Carol, one that showed his darker, predatory side. A longtime friend in whom Carol confided revealed the story. Brando called Carol at 3 o'clock in the morning. At first, he praised her, telling her how talented she was. But then the call got creepy and inappropriate. What started as admiration quickly turned into something that made her deeply uncomfortable. This happened in the mid-70s. Carol's show was a huge hit and Brando was riding high from The Godfather. They knew of each other, but they weren't friends. The call started professionally, with Brando talking about her comedy and even suggesting they work together. But then, the crazy part, the conversation took a sharp turn. A former assistant who heard the story from Carol explained it started with compliments about her performances, then shifted to comments about her physical appearance, and finally devolved into explicit, unwanted suggestions. Carol, a total professional, tried to steer the conversation back to work multiple times, but Brando was persistent and his comments became more and more graphic. This put Carol in a terrible spot. This was an era when female performers had very little power. Saying no to a man like Marlon Brando carried huge professional risks, but his behavior was so out of line, she couldn't just play along. She tried to end the call politely several times, the assistant recalled, but Brando kept talking. It felt predatory. The incident was bad enough, but what happened next made it worse. Somehow, the details of this private, creepy call leaked to the Hollywood gossip columns. This was a new level of humiliation for Carroll, and Brando's reaction? It's what lands him squarely on this list. A former publicist familiar with the story said the media turned it into a circus. When a reporter finally asked Brando about the inappropriate call, he didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. Instead, he reportedly said, "Carroll takes things too seriously. Some women don't understand the difference between appreciation and inappropriate behavior." That single comment was a masterclass in gaslighting. He publicly blamed her for being uncomfortable with his boundary-crossing conduct. A CBS executive who worked with Carroll said it all. He used his power to not just cross boundaries, but to then shame her for having boundaries at all. It wasn't just the creepy call. It was the total lack of accountability. It was using his superstar status to dismiss her feelings and paint her as the problem. That's what disturbed her to the core. But not all icons were creepy, some were just plain cruel. Charm as a weapon. For generations of movie fans, Cary Grant was the definition of charm. He was sophisticated, handsome, and impossibly elegant. His entire image was built on being the perfect debonair gentleman. But Carol Burnett's personal encounter with Grant showed a very different man hiding behind that perfect facade. A man who was mean, elitist, and shockingly rude. The story comes from a former television producer who witnessed the whole thing. It happened at a big industry awards show in the late 60s or early 70s. Right when Carol's show was the biggest thing on TV, Carol was talking with some executives. Cary Grant was in a nearby group. Someone mentioned Carol's show and its recent Emmy wins. That's when Grant, loud enough for her to hear, made his comment, "Oh, that show," he said with a sneer, "the one where she waves her arms and overacts." Basically, it was a drive-by insult. He didn't even have the nerve to say it to her, just at her. What made it so nasty was that he was attacking the very thing that made her brilliant, her fearless physical comedy. He was trying to make her, and television comedy, seem small and stupid. But here's the deal. He picked the wrong person to mess with. The witness said, Carol calmly clapped back. He never apologized. Without missing a beat, Carol turned slightly toward Grant and said, "Mr. Grant, some of us have to use our whole bodies to express emotion. We can't all rely on just one raised eyebrow." The group around them had a stunned, uncomfortable laugh. Grant? He just walked away. He couldn't handle being challenged. Now here's the wow factor that makes this story even better. It's not that simple, though. Why would a legend like Cary Grant be so mean? Hollywood historians and biographers have an answer. She intimidated him. What most people don't realize is that Grant, the icon of sophistication, was deeply insecure. He came from the old movie studio system, which looked down on television as a lesser medium. But he was also insecure about his own lack of formal training. Carol, on the other hand, had a formal education in theater. Grant had none. His contempt was just a mask for his own insecurity. He couldn't stand her success in a medium he'd never mastered. A friend of Carol's said the insult stuck with her not because it hurt her feelings, but because it revealed the ugly attitude of old Hollywood. It showed the gap between Grant's charming public image and his real-life cruelty. That's the list. But did Hollywood make them this way, or were they always horrible? Let us know below. Like and subscribe for more truths.